Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Smart Stark. Today, we're going to explore ways to finance your college education. Our goal for today is that you leave with new ideas about sources of funding you may not have known about, and more importantly, the amazing people that are available at our colleges and universities here in Stark. They want to help you make college affordable. My name is Rebecca Kuzma, and I will be facilitating today's session along with Elisa Stout from Strengthening Stark. We also have an amazing partner with us, the Stark Education Partnership, and we are so glad that you joined us today. Strengthening Stark works with many community partners, and the Stark Education Partnership is one of the most dedicated. Jay Moody and Teresa Persis do amazing work, and it's thanks to them that we're here today. We're talking with all of you. In just a few minutes, I'm going to invite members from the various community colleges, universities, and colleges here in Stark to join us, and we're going to run through a series of questions that will help you understand how you can go to school here in Stark. We'll try to answer your questions in simple ways, and we'll be happy to take questions at the end of the session as well. So without further ado, I'm going to invite our college representatives to join me on screen, and we'll do a brief introduction. Jenny, let's start with you.
Hi, I'm Jenny Chadwell, and I am a financial aid representative from the University of Mount Union.
Thanks for being with us. Katie?
Hi, I'm Katie Shalmo. I am the Assistant Director in our Student Financial Aid Office, and I am representing Kent State Stark Campus.
We're glad you're with us this afternoon. Hi, Griffey.
Hi, my name is Griffey Gertie, and I'm actually an admissions counselor at Walsh University, but I'm going to cover the financial aid pieces today.
Okay, good, thanks. Lucas?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lucas Brewer. I'm the Director of Financial Aid and Scholarships at Stark State College.
Thank you. Cassie?
Good afternoon. My name is Cassie Prater, and I'm a Financial Aid Administrator at Altman College.
Thanks, Cassie. Denisa?
Good afternoon. My name is Denisha Newby. I am an Assistant Director at the University of Akron Financial Aid, and I do outreach and education. Glad to be here.
Thank you. We're glad to have you. And I think we're missing one member of our panel. Pam, are you with us? There we go. Hi, Pam.
Hi, I'm Pam Puste, Director of Financial Aid at Malone University.
Okay, well, thank you again. We're so glad you're all with us, and I know you're going to be very informative this afternoon. I'm going to start my question with Katie from Kent State. Katie, can you tell us a little bit about the grant opportunities that are available to students? We hear about Pell and just any number of grants that might be available. Can you just share a little more about that?
Absolutely. So there are a lot of grant opportunities for students, and I will elaborate on what a grant actually is. Grant programs are considered gift aid. So this is aid that the student could receive that they don't have to pay back. So you want this aid. This is great. You typically need to complete a FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid, in order to qualify for the federal grant programs. So the Pell Grant, for example, is mentioned. That program is definitely based through the FAFSA. So you have to have that on file, and you have to have need. So what is need? Need is where, based on all your income information and your household size that you've put into the FAFSA, they basically spit out a number that is what we use as an index number to determine a student's need. So if you do show need, then we can offer the Pell Grant. That program is an entitlement, so you can do the FAFSA at any time. And if you show eligibility, we will award the Pell Grant to students. The maximum Pell Grant award this year for 2020-2021 is $6,345 for the year for our highest, neediest student. So that is a lot of money that will assist in covering almost your full-time tuition, depending on what institution you attend. There's also a program called FSEOG. It has a super long name, so most people just refer to it as FSEOG. It's the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant. And this program is also based out of Fafsa. Students do have to show need for this program as well. And each college has different eligibility requirements. So this money could be one number from one institution and then another number from a different institution. But typically students are awarded anywhere between $100 and $4,000 for the year. So it just depends. This one, students need to get that FAFSA in early. There's usually a deadline that's tied to this program because the funding is limited. So I would definitely get that FAFSA done as early as possible for your greatest opportunities for these programs. Another grant program that is federal aid from the FAFSA is the Teach Grant program. And this grant is pretty awesome because it is not need-based. It's for anybody who is working towards a teaching program. So if you're going into elementary education or middle childhood education, you could potentially be eligible for this grant program. You usually have to meet the test scoring above the 75th percentile or have a 3.25 GPA. But then the college will offer that to you. And then there's some information of what you need to do. You usually have to plan on working in a low income school district in maybe a high need field. So you might be asking, well, what's a high need field? That would be something like foreign language, mathematics, maybe being a reading specialist. But if you have questions about that, I would definitely reach out to your financial aid office to get some more information.
Thanks so much, Katie. That was really informational, and I'm glad you explained the FSEOG. I was wondering what that was myself. We appreciate all that great information. It sounds like there's a lot of money available out there for students, and they just need to reach out to you and your peers to learn more. Thank you. Lucas, could you join us? Hi. A lot of questions have come in about the types of work-study jobs that might be available. Can you help us understand how that can support a college education as well as the grants that Katie just shared with us?
Absolutely. It's a great question. And in my experience, it's one of the most misunderstood parts of financial aid. So I'll start with a little bit of a definition. And federal college work study, simply put, is just the ability for a student to work and earn funds while they're on campus. To kind of piggyback also something that was mentioned earlier, in order to qualify for federal college work study, a student does need to complete the FAFSA, the free application for federal aid. So not only is it important to fill out in terms of to see what grants that a student may qualify for, but if the student wants to work on campus, they also need to complete the FAFSA. But in terms of the types of positions that are on campus, it differs depending on the institution. So I've been working in higher education for quite a long time. Specifically in enrollment management, I can tell you that almost every department in an enrollment management division will employ student workers. So think of it, one position is working in a financial aid department. You know, we have financial aid work study students who work in our department. They help, do filing, do paperwork. We have students who assist in our computer labs, helping other students actually fill out FAFSAs. So it kind of comes full circle. But it really depends on what a student's interested in. If you go to any given institution's HR website, typically they're going to have all their federal college work study positions listed there on the website. So again, it could be doing something like being a tour guide in the admissions department. It could be assisting in the athletic department, checking people in and out of a weight room. It could be something more related to your major. So if you are a science or biology student, you may find that there's a federal college work study opportunity in a research lab. So there are all different kinds of positions on campus, some related to a major, some that are just more general. So it really kind of depends on what a student's interests are and what their availability, because like the name would kind of indicate, it's a part-time position. It can be used to help pay for an education, but typically you're going to be looking towards federal college work study earnings to help out potentially with books, personal expenses, or perhaps just some walking around money. So the types of positions vary, but almost every school is going to list those positions on their website.
Thanks, Lucas. That was helpful and good to know that it can be used for miscellaneous expenses as well. Kathy, would you like to join us?
Hello.
Hi. Tell me a little bit about whether college tax credits are available and how a family might qualify for that.
Okay. There are actually two available. The American Opportunity Tax Credit or the Lifetime Learning Credit. It kind of depends on the family situation as to whether or not the family could be eligible for them. They are a little bit different than each other. So the American Opportunity Tax Credit, for example, provides credit for up to 4 years post high school or undergraduate college education, whereas the Lifetime Learning Credit is a little more less restrictive and is available throughout your entire lifetime. So whether you're an undergrad, a graduate student, or just an older non-traditional student, it is available to you. It is also, as far as like the eligibility, some of them are very similar as far as like you have to be enrolled at least half time or throughout the academic period. Whereas like the Lifetime Learning Credit, you only really have to have one or more courses depending on what you're doing. So it really varies based on like what you specifically are doing and then what your family is. So like if you are a dependent or if it's for you specifically or if it's for your spouse, all of that's going to go into whether or not you're eligible for one of these tax credits. The best bet, honestly, is to contact a tax professional or preparer that you work with to get the most up-to-date and accurate information on whether or not this could apply to you.
Thanks, Kathy. Kathy, that was really helpful. We appreciate it. Okay, Griffey, you want to join us and talk with us a little bit about needs versus merit-based scholarship opportunities?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you. So yeah, need-based scholarships and also merit-based scholarships are both offered at most universities that you might take a look at, any college you might take a look at. But at least specifically speaking from a Walsh standpoint, when we talk about a merit-based scholarship, we're speaking about a scholarship that is usually derived from your transcripts, so your GPA, along with your test scores, whether that be SAT, ACT, or in the case of homeschooling students, the CLT. And we do different things like super score, or we even have test optional opportunities now for students to submit essays, which we think is going to be even more pertinent within the next year to derive those scholarships. But those merit-based scholarships at Walsh, they range between $10,000 to $16,000 to start, that are automatically renewable year over year. And those are awarded immediately when the student, applies and gets accepted. And those typically are held within, so I guess some schools might give you the value over 4 years, and some schools will give you you'll get exactly this value every year. But they're usually renewable in a sense of merit-based at Walsh University. There are also some other merit-based scholarships for students in maybe higher academic standing. So for instance, we have our honor scholarship that could bring you an additional $4,000 on top of your merit-based at Walsh, or up to our presidential scholarship, which is a full tuition scholarship to Walsh University. But it's important to just note that when we're talking about merit-based, we're talking about something that's based off of your academics or, maybe even athletics, but something that you do, not necessarily how much money your parents make. When we're talking about needs-based scholarships, typically we're talking more about the things that will be filled out through the Fafsa. We also take a look at the FAFSA. We take a look at what the government comes back with your estimated family contribution, and based on that, we provide needs-based scholarships. So, but also we would typically call that more of a grant, like that was spoke about earlier. Money that's gifted to you from us, that you do not have to pay back at the end of the day. So things like resident hall grants could be something that comes from Walsh. If your parents show that you have need to pay to live on campus at college, but that's something that you want to do, we might provide you with a certain amount of money to live on campus and assist you without having to take out loans to do that. In the case of commuters, which is common in Stark County because there are so many large local schools around and so many great options to go to college, commuters are very common. We also might give out the Walsh grant to you, a grant to assist you with not only the cost of tuition, but we also know, and I think it's not forgot by the schools sometimes, but maybe forgotten by the student, there is a cost associated with driving to school every day and being able to show up. But when you're talking about the difference between merit and need-based, it's really just, really in the name, based off of whether it's your academic standing and merit or needs in a need-based scholarship.
Thanks, Griffey. It's good to know there's a lot of money out there, and so folks just need to reach out to you and learn what's available. We appreciate all that information. Hi, Pam. Would you like to join us on screen? Hi, welcome back. Tell me a little bit about how scholarships might affect my financial aid. Griffey just shared some great opportunities, but will that affect other financial aid?
For some reason, I lost my audio. I hope you're able to hear me. Are you?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
All
Thank
right,
you.
I will go ahead and answer the question regarding outside scholarships. The short answer is that in most cases, an outside scholarship is not going to affect financial aid that's already been awarded by a college. Instead, the scholarship can help cover costs that are not already paid for by financial aid. And therefore, outside scholarships can be a great benefit to students. In some cases, especially if the amount of the outside scholarship is significant, there could be a reduction to any need-based aid that the college has already previously awarded. But generally, that's when the outside scholarship is of significant value. It's important to know, too, that because outside scholarships are considered a financial resource to help pay for the cost of education, students are required to report any outside scholarships that they receive to the school's financial aid office. The outside scholarships are included as part of the student's financial aid awards, and the aid adjustments or changes will be made by the financial aid office based on federal regulations and individual school policies.
Thanks, Pam. That was really helpful. Jenny, would you like to join us? Hi, Jenny. Can you tell us a little bit about whether there's one application for financial aid or multiple forms that need to be completed? I know folks have been talking about the Fafsa, so can you tell us a little more about that?
Sure, yeah. The main application for financial aid is the FAFSA, which has already been mentioned several times, the free application for federal student aid. So completing the FAFSA is the vital first step for any new incoming college student that is interested in receiving any kind of financial aid. Some colleges will actually require a student to file an additional application for financial aid that is special to their institution. Here at Mount Union, we don't have something like that. We only require the FAFSA. There's no additional application. So merit scholarships here at Mount, we award those without receiving the FAFSA, just from your basic application to the school. But any other kind of financial aid that you would receive, we would require the FAFSA to be submitted to us first. So really important that every student file that FAFSA. And we just want to mention that here at Mount Union, we're more than willing in our office here to help students and families with filing the FAFSA. It can be overwhelming, especially the first time that, families are looking at that application. So, and I think most of the other financial aid offices would be the same way. So if you need help filing that application, don't hesitate to reach out. We're more than happy to help you with that. I just want to mention also that students who are dependents of their parents, which most college students are going to need to supply both the student and parent information on the FAFSA. So the FAFSA will need to be signed electronically by both a student and a parent. So both the student and the parent will have to sign the FAFSA by creating an FSA ID and password. So when you go online to fill out the FAFSA, you'll have to create an FSA ID and password. The student will and the parent also, so that both can sign it electronically. And then on the FAFSA, the student is going to be prompted to list any colleges that he or she wants to receive that FAFSA information. So any colleges that you list there on the FAFSA, we're going to receive your FAFSA information electronically. And then once we receive that FAFSA information, we can determine what aid the student is eligible for, whether it's federal aid, state aid, or our own institutional aid. And then once we've come up with a financial aid offer, we will send it out to the student, and it'll detail all the different aid, scholarships, grants, loans, anything that the student is eligible to receive. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. That was great. Appreciate the positive spin on that. There's a lot of paperwork, but it's good to know that you're there to help everybody with that paperwork. Okay, let's talk with Denisha from the University of Akron. Hi.
Hi,
How are you this afternoon?
doing well. Glad to be
Good.
here.
Good. We're glad to have you. Can you tell me about whether the University of Akron has a full need financial aid policy, and exactly what does that mean?
Great question. University of Akron is a four-year public institution. Most public institutions do not have technical on file full need aid policy. And let me explain what that really is. So when you are completing the FAFSA form, you'll put your information in there and they come up with a value. It's called the expected family contribution, or EFC, as we in financial aid world use a lot that word EFC. So your EFC is standard across whatever school you're looking at. The difference is the cost of attendance that each school has. So that cost of attendance, let's say it's $5,000 for the year, minus your expected family contribution. Some cases it's zero. That difference is how much in need that you have and that you can get in need-based awards. Many schools, even if they don't have a formal policy of having, of basically meeting that full need of that student's family, we try very hard to build an offer package that helps break down that cost. So families sometimes are under the impression that if their expected family contribution is zero, then that's all they don't have to pay anything at all. Or if their expected family contribution is $5,000, that's the only amount that they'd have to pay. But it does vary by institution and basically that individual student's package. So that number isn't a dollar figure. It's really just a figure that the institution uses to determine, okay, this student is at this level, we can award this award. So we kind of use that as a placeholder so that we can kind of look at families on the same levels, comparing apples to apples. So to answer the question, no, the University of Akron doesn't have a full need financial aid policy, but even though we do not, us, along with most institutions, try hard to, not only look at the student's need and covering that, but also helping them to fully cover their cost of attendance.
Thanks, Denisha. That was really helpful. And I think it emphasizes what each of the colleges and universities have been trying to share, which is reach out, talk to them, and they're going to work with you. Sometimes challenges have silver linings, and our COVID crisis has created some silver linings. And there are some opportunities out there that are new and unique in this situation. And so please do reach out to each of these folks, and they'll talk with you and help you through the process. So let's continue. I'm going to bring Katie back and ask her another question. Hi, Katie, welcome back.
Hi.
If I get a work-study job, how many hours am I going to have to work, and are part-time jobs available to those students who might not qualify for an actual work-study program?
Absolutely. So the great thing about a work-study job is they know that your number one priority is school. So there are not any required hours that you have to meet at institutions. Some departments might have a minimum request that the student meet. For example, maybe in the financial aid office, they want you to work at least 10 hours Monday through Friday in that office. So it would just be specific to that department. But what's great about it is if your school is number one. So if you have a huge test that's coming up on Thursday and you communicate that with your supervisor, you can usually flex your schedule to have some extra time to study and then maybe make up those hours on Friday. If needed. So work study definitely doesn't have any minimum hour requirement. Sometimes there's maximum hour requirements. Students typically in the state of Ohio can't work more than 28 hours on the university campus. So you would definitely want to check with whichever department that you're interested in. Now, if you're not work study funded, there are definitely still job opportunities for you. You can just search different jobs that are available using your career services office or your student employment office. So at Kent State, we have a portal that the student can use to search any available job openings and apply for those positions or reach out to the supervisor for those positions. And if you are not work study eligible, then you can just get paid through university funding. So it just depends on the type of job position that you're looking at. And from there, the supervisor would communicate to you if they're looking for only somebody who's work study eligible or if they have university funded opportunities as well. And the difference between those isn't anything that impacts how you get paid directly. So it's all going to be direct deposit, however you earn your money. You just will see that you have work study offered to you and awarded to you from completing the FAFSA, where university funded. It doesn't matter if you have a FAFSA on file, they'll set it up just a traditional way for your job opportunity.
Thanks, Katie. And one more application of that FAFSA. That's an important piece of paper.
Sure
So,
is.
Yep, thank you. Hi, Lucas. You want to come back and join us? So Lucas, tell me a little bit about tuition payment plans that might be available. Are there monthly bill payment plans, and how does that work over the academic year?
Absolutely. So it's a great question. So as a student, you've done everything that's been asked of you. You've filled out your FAFSA. You've potentially qualified for some grants or scholarships that you've applied for. You've gone as far to find a federal college work study job. So you've done a lot of things. And the reality is that there may still be a balance left on your account that needs to be paid per term or for the academic year. One option that, Stark State College, and I'm going to guess a lot of my colleagues at the other institutions have, is an institutional payment plan. So it is not a loan. It is just a payment plan. So whether it's determined per term or per year, most every school is going to offer that. These are not, again, as I said, they're not loans, so they don't have any interest rates or anything associated with it. It's just taking the entire amount that you have, we'll say, for a fall term, and dividing it per month so that it breaks it down, makes the monthly payments hopefully manageable for your family. Because whether it's $500 or $5,000, schools certainly understand that that's a lot of money to come out of pocket with up front. So for Stark State College, we have what's called the SIP, which is called the Student Installment Payment Plan. Again, I'm going to guess that a lot of peer institutions have something similar, but it takes the balance for any given term and divides it over 4 payments. So again, it's going to take that payment and stretch it out over a longer period of time. Again, hopefully making it more manageable for families to afford. So each school, I'm going to guess, does have this, but whether it's per month, per term, per year, that's going to kind of depend a little bit upon the institution. But almost universally, yes, schools are going to offer some sort of payment arrangement for a remaining balance.
Thanks, Lucas. I appreciate that. Okay, Cassie, you want to come back and join us?
Sure.
Thank you. Can you tell me a little bit about what is a need blind admission program? Do you guys offer it? And is it going to have any impact on the chances of financial aid or being admitted to the college?
Okay. Altman College is not, or is need blind. I'm sorry. Altman College is need blind. So need blind admission means that we do not consider an applicant's financial situation when deciding on their admission. So essentially what that means is we're not looking at your FAFSA or any other financial information when it comes to deciding on your eligibility to admission to the college. So your finances will not be a factor in whether or not you're accepted or denied to Altman College.
Thanks, Cassie. And do you know, is that a pretty standard practice?
I don't know that I know enough to say.
Okay, we'll check in at the end then and see how the others feel about that. Thanks, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hi, Griffey. Welcome back. So one of the questions I received was, if I don't apply for financial aid this year, will that affect my ability to get financial aid in subsequent years?
All right, well, thank you for the question. Hopefully I can answer that for you. So I guess one important thing to note as far as it goes with not just Walsh, but anybody coming back to the FAFSA that we've talked about so much since this started, is that, as much as parents don't always necessarily want to, it is something that's filed every year. And the reason that it's filed every year is because circumstances change over time. So, maybe this year you decide you're not going to file the FAFSA because your family's not in a standing where they have need, and you just want to pay out of pocket for whatever institution that you choose, whether that's in Stark County or beyond. But next year the situation's a little bit different. Absolutely, you can file the FAFSA that next year. And as far as at least speaking in Walsh's standards, because I just don't know the general practices of every other college here, but we have pretty much the same opportunities available to students no matter what year they come in. The merit-based scholarship that I spoke about, that's one of the biggest scholarships we give out off the top, is not need-based and not required on the FAFSA. So you would keep that scholarship and you would be eligible for any grants that you would have been eligible for your freshman year, as well as you'll be eligible, as other students are every year, to take, Stafford loan, which is the standard loan that you'll see for whatever institution you're attending. When you file the FAFSA, you'll come back with some form of Stafford loan between subsidized and unsubsidized, without going too deep into that. So the direct answer would be no. If you didn't file the first year, that wouldn't be an issue for you the next year. And I guess one little tricky caveat to that would just be the fact that when you file the FAFSA, and nobody's really noted this yet, you go off of previous years tax information. So one other thing you want to note, and most any institution is going to have this available for you. I know Walsh does, and I know probably anybody else that's here on the call with me is going to have this as well. If your family hits some sort of hardship, obviously the situation we're in right now is a great example, but it doesn't matter. Every year, obviously, different families hit different hardships. You're still going to be going off of tax information from maybe back when whoever had a job had that job. So one thing you're going to want to note is that most schools, if not all schools here, have what are called special circumstance forms. You file those forms, and they get sent out like the FAFSA again. We come back, your EFC gets adjusted, and then based on that, we redo our personal aid from Walsh University. So the money that we give you, as well as the government, will adjust what they offer you based on that as well. And so if you're in a situation where, right now you're in a bad situation because maybe a parent lost their job, but that's not reflected in 2 years ago, whether that's 2019 next year or 2018 for the students this year. It's important to note that you need to talk to that. Maybe you start with your admissions counselor like me, but then you move to the financial aid office and you get that special circumstance filed so that you can get the aid and the help that you need. So I guess that's kind of two answers to the same question, but no, you can definitely file the next year if you don't file this one.
Great, thank you. And thank you for that special tip. Again, we may find many families in that situation where their financial situation is different this year than it was in prior years. And again, it's good to know that you guys are all there to help. Pam, you want to come back and talk with me again?
I sincerely apologize. I have not been able to regain my audio yet. So as long as you can hear me, I will wing this and hope we can get through this. You can still hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
It's awesome. I'm becoming very good at reading lips.
Good.
There's a common misconception among college students and families that they wouldn't qualify for any need-based aid because of their family's income. But the definition of need is actually a little more flexible than what income bracket a family's financial situation falls into. When a college requires you to show demonstrated need for financial aid, all they mean is that your expected family contribution, your EFC, as determined from the FAFSA calculations, the federal student aid, the free application for federal student aid doesn't mean that their established cost of, just means that it doesn't meet their established cost of attendance. This makes demonstrated financial need a very fluid figure from college to college. The cost of attendance differs from college to college. There's other influences too, such as income changes from year to year, the number in school, the number of people in a household, and whether or not you have siblings in college can all affect the demonstrated financial need number. One way to think about this is if your EFC is $15,000 per year and the cost of attendance for a particular school is $14,000, you don't have any demonstrated financial need at that college or university. But if you take the EFC of $15,000 per year and apply it to a school with a cost of education of $45,000 per year, you now have demonstrated need of $30,000. Now the question is, does your college meet my full demonstrated financial need? The answer to that question is yes, and the answer to that question is also no. Obviously, the need gap for every student is different, and the financial aid a student qualifies for is different as well. In some cases, it's very easy to meet the full demonstrated financial need of a student, and in some cases, it takes creativity and a combined effort to remove financial hurdles for a family and for the student. I can assure you that myself and all other financial aid professionals on this meeting work tirelessly with students and their families to make affordable access to higher education a reality. I'll also tell you that our intent is to not just work with the student and family financially for the first year, but to continue to work with the students and families each year to graduation. I often tell our incoming students that I'm their new best friend for the next 4 years.
Thanks so much for working through your technical challenges, Pam. You did a great job. Appreciate the answer to that question. I'm going to have Jenny from Mount Union come back and join us again. So Jenny, we've been talking a lot about financial need and grants and work study. And tell me about the different loans that might be available. It gets kind of scary when you hear about loans. Some people are saying they're leaving college with really large debt, but I know that that's a option to finance college. So can you talk a little bit about that with us?
Sure. When it comes to loans, we have to remember college is an investment for your future. So even though it can be a little bit scary, many college students do need loans to try to help them fund their education and make that investment for the future. So the first type of loans we want to mention is when you file the Fafsa, every new freshman college student is going to be eligible for what we call direct loans. These are also in the past called Stafford Loans. These are basically federal loans that are only in the student's name. And as a freshman incoming student, a student can borrow up to $5,500 in federal direct loans. Now those are going to be applied and awarded based on the Fafsa. So once again, you have to file the Fafsa to be able to be eligible for those loans. That $5,500 can be in an unsubsidized loan, or a portion of it can be in a subsidized loan. And that subsidized portion can be up to $3,500 for the year as an incoming freshman. So the difference, a lot of people get confused on the difference between subsidized and unsubsidized loans. Subsidized loans do not accrue any interest while you're still in college, whereas an unsubsidized loan will accrue interest along the way while you're still a college student. Both of those types of loans are going to be paid back starting after you graduate. So you're not going to have to make any payments on them until after you graduate. And both of those types of loans have an interest rate right now of 2.75%. The subsidized loans, which are the ones that I just mentioned, don't accrue interest while you're still in school. Those type of loan funds are awarded based on need. So some of the other financial aid representatives on here have mentioned how we calculate whether you show financial need or not. So not everybody is going to be eligible for subsidized loans. That is going to be based on the need that is demonstrated by your Fafsa. Sometimes, even after you've applied all of your grants, your scholarships, and even those federal direct loans, you still have a balance that you need to pay. And maybe you aren't able to pay that out of pocket, or even to try to make monthly payments, you're not able to financially to swing that. And you need to take out some additional loans to try to cover your balance due at the end after all your financial aid and everything has been applied. There are basically two options for those additional loan funds. The first one is called a Parent Plus loan. That is going to be a federal loan, but is only for parents. So it's not going to have the student's name on it. It's just going to have a parent's name on that type of loan. You can apply online. Like I said, it's called a Parent Plus loan. And a parent is going to go online and apply and either be accepted or denied based on a credit check. So again, it's a federal loan. You're going to apply, they're going to run a credit check, and then they will either accept or deny the parent for that loan. The other option is a private loan. So the good thing about private loans is it doesn't have to be in a parent's name. It can be in a parent's name or it can be in the student's name. A student will probably need a co-signer for the loan unless they already have credit in their own name, which most college students do not. So when you apply for a private loan, you're going to be applying through a private lender of some kind, like a bank or credit union. There are a lot of different private lenders out there that offer student loans at different interest rates. So we kind of recommend that families kind of do their own research, see what different lenders offer them as far as the interest rates and everything, to try to help with that loan. So basically either one of those type of loans, either the Parent Plus loan or a private loan, can be used to help pay the student's balance after all their other financial aid has been applied. It can also be used if you want to borrow a little extra. You can also use it towards other expenses like housing, books, other educational expenses as well.
Thanks so much, Jenny. We appreciate that. Okay, Denisha, come back and join us. Hello again.
Hi.
So we've heard a lot about the financial aid that's available, and it sounds like you guys are just going to help these folks get to school. What should be their expectations for the remainder of the school, the 4 years that they're there? Should they expect similar financial aid?
That's a good question. I think that most institutions do try to continue most funding options, but it really depends on the program. So I know one of the big aspects is, of course, doing the FAFSA form and assuming not much has changed, from a slight increase, an annual increase every year. But if there are changes, sometimes that does make a big difference. But in general, we hope that it's going to be about the same. Just be sure that you're doing whatever application or FAFSA by if there's a priority deadline, because it depends on each individual actual award. So let's say the Pell Grant in SEOG and the state grant, which I don't think anyone touched on, the OCOG grant, I think they did. But those, because of funding and state and federal funding, normally those stay about the same, but we always actually hope for an increase on those slightly. But there might be some things that you have to apply by their priority deadline of that institution. So if you don't apply by the priority deadline, then you might not get that award, such as SEOG, such as work study. And then two, just making sure that you're continuing, if it's a scholarship or something like that, meeting the criteria, the renewal criteria, whether it's, a GPA requirement. Some awards you have are based on your college. So being in engineering, being in nursing. So again, kind of a lot of factors of reasons why awards could change because of eligibility, but in general, again, the institutions try hard to make sure that you're eligible for that particular program each year. There are some programs that are just for incoming freshman students, and it's a one-time award. The University of Akron has some housing awards. So if you're not in housing the third or second year, you're not going to get that housing award. So it really is on an individual basis, on an individual awards, and finding out, especially when you get that initial offer, is that particular award, an 8 semester or whatever quarter award, or is it a one-time, first-time award? But in general, yes, I think we do try to make sure that you're able to not only get there that first year and pay for it that first year, but continue and graduate by having funding options.
Thanks so much, Denisha. That was really helpful. I'm going to ask all of our financial aid experts to join us back on the screen. We do have a few questions that have come in from the audience. So I'm going to toss them out there, and I'm going to ask Alicia to join me. She can share some of what she's been seeing coming through on Facebook. But the first question that came in is, when should this Fafsa be filled out?
I'll go ahead and weigh in as early as possible, but it's available October 1st of every year. So I would strongly encourage students, because presumably they have the tax returns that they need in order to file the FAFSA, because again, we're going back tax years from a few years prior. But I would highly encourage students to not wait too long. It's available October 1st. Complete it as quickly as you can.
So if students want to go to school in the fall, this fall, did they miss a deadline for the FAFSA, or can they still fill one out and start working with you guys?
They can,
Yeah, I think, go ahead.
They can certainly still fill it out. But what I will say is that there's probably some distinction. Different institutions may have institutional deadlines, but in terms of just the ability to still complete it and receive some sort of federal aid, I would still certainly imagine that they have more than enough time to do that. But they want to do it soon, not only because they want to make sure they have an accurate picture for how they're going to finance their education, but as it was alluded to, some other funds are tied to the timeliness of a FAFSA completion.
And if I could weigh in as well, I know many of us this past spring semester had some changes go on. And so I worked with some students who thought they had their funding all in place. And then, we had our COVID happen. And so they chose then to file the FAFSA. They hadn't filed it all year, and they chose then to do it. Most institutions allow through almost the end of that quarter semester, whatever. And then there are some other federal deadlines in there, but like my colleague said, if you do it early, then you have it in place. And even if you choose not to even act on it, maybe you don't want to take some of the loan options, but you just want the grants and you have other funding, it's there kind of waiting in the wings, like on deck, in case something does happen and you don't have to worry about the paperwork. You already have it on file, and then you can activate it for that current academic year.
Thanks, Denisha. I appreciate that clarification. If you get a financial aid package and then you find out that you're also going to get a scholarship, is that going to affect the financial aid package? And I think we talked a little bit about this earlier. Katie, you want to jump in?
Yeah, so it basically just depends on what your financial aid package looks like. So it would need to be a substantial scholarship award to typically impact your offer that you already have. If it would start eating up a lot of your need, then we would maybe have to reduce a subsidized loan, for example. But something that is a Pell Grant, that is an entitlement program. Nobody is going to take that funding away from you. So that would never be impacted by a scholarship that you would receive. And I think that whomever touched on this earlier, they indicated that scholarship may be able to be used for other expenses. If it doesn't say tuition specifically on the offer letter that you received, then we could apply that to living expenses. So it just really depends on the type of scholarship, how much the award is for you, and then what your actual financial aid offer looks like. So definitely reach out to your financial aid office if you're curious about how that could impact everything that you've already been awarded.
Great, thank you. Alicia, I see you've joined us. Do you have some other questions that came in while we were talking?
I do. A couple people chimed in. One big question, especially with the COVID environment that we're in, whether they've already filled out their FAFSA or if they're planning to shortly. Since the FAFSA is based on a previous income tax year, many people's situations have changed. So they're concerned that on paper, it'll look like they're much more able to pay for college than they actually are. Can you talk about what the process is for that special circumstance, or what they should expect, or if they should have hope that they can pay for college?
I can speak a little. I know someone had already touched on it a little with the special circumstances process, but for like Altman specifically, we do have like a special circumstances form. So if there are unusual situations or circumstances such as COVID that impact your federal student aid, the federal regulations give us the financial aid administrators, the discretion and professional judgment, as we've been calling it, to make that adjustment to the student's FAFSA.
And I just like to add, if they haven't done the FAFSA yet, be sure to fill it out based on the questions that the FAFSA actually asks. So be sure that you're actually using 2018 tax information on there, even though you know your current situation isn't that way now. And then we will, once you do the form, sometimes we ask for a copy of your tax return, sometimes we want a letter, sometimes we want unemployment information, but we will definitely work with you about the documentation, and then we make the correction, and then you will get a new student aid report saying what that correction was. So you'll know how we adjusted it. And then you might actually have to do it or provide documentation over a few years, because we know that this is just a point in time. And again, this could go on, unfortunately, through the end of this year, and for some people into next year. So, you might have to supply additional documentation. But again, all of my colleagues on here, including we're more than willing to help you, work with you, and even talk you through that process, because we want to make this as easy and seamless process as it can be. And that's what we're here for.
Great, Denisha, that's the message we wanted to deliver, so thank you. Alicia, what other questions do you have?
One question that kept coming up, because a lot of, especially seniors or incoming seniors, are still considering lots of our local schools. They're filling out the FAFSA and putting in the 10 maximum schools that they can send to for free. And then they're getting back, obviously, individualized numbers for each one, I assume. The question was, would a university or college match another institution's financial aid offer? Is that a thing? Does that happen?
Why don't we go around, since that's probably specific to each college? Lucas, would you mind sharing what the Stark State position would be on that?
So no, Stark State's position is that we don't necessarily, I shouldn't say necessarily, we don't match offers. We understand, just like every student's financial situation is unique, every institution's financial situation is unique. So I've worked at a couple of different institutions, and I know maybe some of the people on this call may have some different opinions and outlooks on it. Some schools want to be aware of what other schools are offering, particularly when you start to look at your small selective liberal arts types institutions. But for Stark State College, we do not match award letters.
Thanks, Lucas. Hey, Jenny, how about you? What's the University of Mount Union consider?
We do not necessarily match other offers either. We do have an appeal process that students can ask about. There's a process that a student can go through where they can appeal and provide some of those other offers that they've been awarded from other schools, and we do have a committee that reviews those situations, but we definitely don't commit to matching, necessarily matching another offer from another school.
Okay, thank you. Griffey, what's Walsh University's position?
So our position is going to be fairly similar to what you've heard previously, along the lines of what was just said about Mount. So we're definitely not necessarily going to commit to matching another university's offer because, you know, as was noted before, every university is in a different financial standing, and the cost is just in some cases so drastically different. Now, what I will say is, being especially with private institutions, typically we do like, if you want us to, and we do encourage you to send over to your admissions counselor what's being offered by another school. We will take that into consideration. We will do our best to make our offer, you know, more affordable for you, if at all possible, based on what that other institution's offering you. But we're definitely not going to look to match because, you know, we're just in different situations. I think it was mentioned before, every school just has a different cost, and the cost associated with matching any award that came into us just really isn't feasible, especially when you're talking about the difference between private and public as well. You know, I mean, costs just get so drastically different that it's impossible to really make that guarantee from our standpoint.
Okay, I see a lot of heads nodding. If anybody else wants to weigh in, I don't want to take away your opportunity, but it sounds like pretty similar everywhere. Okay, good. Alicia, any other questions?
Yeah, a couple more actually. One person wants to speak for the non-freshman students coming in. They asked, what do you recommend for young people who have stopped their schooling and have some outstanding loans or debts to a local college so they can't get their transcripts released but want to get back into school? So it sounds like they've gone to school before, they have a balance, they want to finish school. What does that look like for those returning students?
I can weigh in on that. What I would recommend a student in that circumstance is they certainly need to reach out to their financial aid office and their billing office and determine what is their prior term's balance and what are some options. Sometimes there's a discretionary payment plan that students can set up where they'll pay off that prior balance that they have existing on their account so that it does help them move forward, either to register for an upcoming semester then at that institution, or then be able to get their transcripts to send them to another institution. I know there's some legislation out there right now going around about not blocking transcripts due to prior term balances. So I haven't heard any update on that, but I know that that legislation is out there. There's a bill that's pending, but you certainly should reach out to your institution that you're attending because they can work with you. Sometimes you can apply financial aid for an upcoming term to a prior term. It just depends on how much you usually can. I know we work with students at Kent State frequently that are in this circumstance, and we help them work through the process. And especially if maybe they got caught up with maybe not finishing their classes, so their percent complete is an issue or their GPA was an issue. There's an appeal process for that usually, given whatever extenuating circumstances you've gone through. The financial aid office can assist you and help you get back on track to finish your schooling and complete your degree.
And I would like to weigh in as well. I would just say, try to really keep in contact also with the bursar or billing office or whatever, student accounts, whoever collects that fund. Because I've known situations of people making small payments, monthly payments, and showing, they're making an effort to pay that off. And so once it gets under a certain amount, maybe they'll lift it and allow you to register and kind of continue the education. So don't say, well, if I can't pay the whole $3,000 off, I'm not going to pay any of it. Try to chop away at it. And I was at a previous institution, not in this area, but because of the debt, it actually got transferred to the Attorney General. So that's even a bigger thing. So you don't want to let it go that far. I think many state schools maybe have that, in place, but, and then you're getting on your credit and stuff like that. So really try to if it's $50 a week, or, $25 a week, trying to get it down. And then I know there are some private lending institutions that do give funds for previous balances. Not that we want you to go that route, but you also don't want to open up a big old can that is hard to close later. So really, really work hard in getting it taken care of if possible, and as soon as possible.
Good advice. Thank you. Alicia, any further questions?
Yep, just a couple more. We talked a lot about the Fafsa application, that being the first step for almost everyone coming into college. Noting that it's the first step, is it optional? And is there ever a case where you shouldn't or should fill that out? Is there any harm in filling it out if you think you won't need it? Anything along those lines that you'd like to speak on?
I mean, if I could start, I would just encourage any student that is even thinking about filling out the FAFSA to go ahead and fill out the FAFSA. I mean, the big part for me is there's really no drawback to filling out the FAFSA. If you don't, we can't really do anything for you. What you're going to hear from most institutions, and I've already heard other institutions here say it, is, if you're not willing to file the FAFSA, regardless of what your parents make, we can't really even make an attempt at assisting you. Everyone who fills out the FAFSA is going to get offered those direct loans that we spoke about, regardless of your parents' income, as an opportunity to assist you in paying for college. So there's always that benefit if you have to have additional help and maybe your parents aren't able or don't want to help you, but still their tax information shows that they should be able to. I know there's situations they across all different situations. I mean, there could be really anything from owning land to anything else. But no, I would say there's no significant drawbacks, and I can't think of a real situation where you shouldn't, if you think that you might get something or you're looking for the direct loans. It's not going to hurt you in our case. It can only help you. And I personally, as an admissions counselor, know that I'll have students come to me who haven't filed the FAFSA, and they ask for additional aid, and the answer just has to be no from our financial aid office, because if you didn't fill out that FAFSA, we don't know your need, and so we can't see that demonstrated need, whether there is any or not, and we can't really work with you when it comes to needs-based aid.
To build off of that, I personally always recommend it as well. There's been multiple times where students have said the same thing, like, well, I know I'm not going to get anything or whatever from previous years, but things have changed so drastically that, like, when they did fill it out, that they were actually surprised by what they did get offered this time around. And we actually have several scholarships, whether it be like gifted, endowed, or just our mission scholarships in general, that have like requirements being that they filled out the FAFSA. So if you didn't fill it out, then you don't even get like eligibility for a scholarship sometimes. So it just, since it doesn't hurt anything, I just recommend, like, it's always safer to check, because there have been the cases where the student was like so sure that they weren't going to be eligible for anything, and then something had changed since the last time, and all of a sudden we had funds available.
Great advice. Thanks, Cassie. More questions, Alicia?
I think just one or two that relate to each other to wrap it up. I know all of you are sitting willing and ready at your institutions, waiting for people to call, ready for them to come in and ask all their questions. I know there is a fear, especially, being 18, 17, 19, whatever it may be, to approach a financial aid office before committing to a school. Is that an issue if you've not made up your mind on where to go, but you need the help beforehand? Is that a consideration with your help? And where can they go to find you?
Personally speaking, I certainly couldn't imagine enrolling at a college before I had a conversation with the financial aid departments. So if you're a young person and you're evaluating 5 schools, I would encourage a family to have a conversation with 5 financial aid departments, because just like the kind of spectrum of schools that are on this call is different, students could apply to a variety of different schools. Those schools could have different policies on financial aid eligibility. So we have schools here that meet demonstrated financial need. We have schools like Stark State College that have a lower cost, and the federal aid is oftentimes enough to pay for it. So Financial aid has become an integral part of enrollment management. So students, not only do they have some ideas about where they want to go, but they also have to have a really good grasp on how they're going to afford that education. And in my opinion, the financial aid department is kind of uniquely positioned to do that. So I would encourage students and parents, before you get too far down the road, there's different things online that can be found, one of them being a net price calculator. So every school who's Title IV eligible, meaning they receive federal financial aid, has to have on their website what's called a net price calculator. So it gives families the ability, without disclosing any information, to go out there, put some information about what they made, what they earned, paid in taxes, their income, their assets, those type of things. And schools are required to give a general estimate of what a student may qualify for at that school. So that's kind of a hassle-free, obligation-free way just to kind of evaluate some different schools. But again, I would highly encourage students and families to talk to financial aid departments before they get too far down the road, because again, going to a school, picking school based on academics and things, those are obviously very important decisions, but financial feasibility is also an important decision.
Thanks, Lucas. I think that was a great way to wrap us up. If anyone has any last minute things they'd like to add, I'd be happy to give you the time. Okay, well, thank you so much. And thank you again to our partners at the Stark Education Partnership. Teresa Cursis and Jay Moody again made this possible. We appreciate everybody who's joined in and the universities for committing their time. And we look forward to seeing a lot more Stark students attending Stark colleges and universities. So thank you all and have a great afternoon.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you.